Good morning, San Diego. What's going on? A lot better of a weather day yesterday than it is this morning, but hopefully the sun will break out and we'll be ready to go for Padres baseball coming up at 1:10 today. Sam Levitt will have the EcoWater SoCal pregame show coming up at 12:10 right here on 97.3 The Fan. Recapping the weekend in the sports world, but also talking about this San Diego Padres ball club that has had, man, they have had some tough nights at the yard here at Petco Park the last couple of days. I mean, really tough nights against the Philadelphia Phillies, who seem like they are playing at a level that's just way above where the San Diego Padres currently at. I mean, it's been tough watching this Padres team the last couple of days, especially after the tough loss in Colorado. And that's a big reason why I was adamant about you got to be able to win those games in Colorado and not split and settle. As much as we like to say, oh, this happens all the time to good teams, they're going to have that clunker, they're going to have that, that bad game mixed in. Padres can't afford to have too many of those bad games. And then they can't afford to go out there the next 2 days and get worked by the Philadelphia Phillies, who, by the way, look like the best team in the National League this weekend. And I know they're red hot. But that is an excuse for what has been the last couple of games this weekend against the Phillies. When you have your three best pitchers currently in the rotation going, not necessarily in the order, and you need to bounce back after only going 2-2 in Colorado, a place against a team, by the way, that had only had 5 wins going into that series on the season. And then you go out there and get absolutely hammered on Friday 9-3. And then last night, you get 3 hits and you only muster 1 run. And I know Ranger Suarez is having a good year, but you had your best on the hill, and he gave up a 2-run bomb to Alec Boehm in the first inning, walked in a run in the 5th, and then gave up another knock to Alec Boehm in the 5th later on to make it 5-0. I don't know what needs to change with this team, and I don't know how many times you could say it's still relatively early. But they're starting to go down the path right now of being the exact same team they were last year. And we kind of mentioned that at the beginning of the season. I still think with the talent that they have and the way that Major League Baseball is constructed, they could still make the playoffs. Obviously, it's super early, right? They're 14 and 16? They've only played 30 games this year. But we talked about it on Annie and Elston a couple of days ago when the Padres were 14 and 14, and then all of a sudden it kind of fall by the wayside. They won a couple of games, went down to Mexico City, right? And then got up to, I think it was like they were up like 18 and they're like 18 and 15 on the year last year, and then that was the last time they were above 500 or at least 500 until near the end of the season when they became 80 and 80 again, or back to 500 and became 80 and 80. So as much as any other year for the Padres, if this were to happen, I think a lot of Padres fans would be like, well, it's early. We still got to figure a lot of things out. But the way last year played out, I think that gives Padres fans a reason to pause for a second and go, what's going on? Are all the holes in this lineup starting to come about? So again, the Padres' highest mark above 500 last year was 3 games above on May 5th when they beat the Dodgers in that first game of that 3-game series. Played the crying Kershaw, and then proceeded to just fall apart for the most of the season, in which they told everybody, hey, it's early, we're going to figure this thing out. We had the it's early, we're going to figure this thing out speech against Colorado a couple of days ago, and now the Padres have dropped 2 in a row where they get run out of Petco Park. So that's from a negative side. Positive side, you do have some guys playing some good ball, a couple of guys here and there, but a big problem for the Padres right now, the top of the order is not getting the job done. The top of the order is not getting the job done. Where have we heard this before? Oh, last year. Your top 3 highest paid players on the team last night were 0 for 11. Now, that's going to happen. That's going to happen. There are going to be times where Bogarts, Tatis, and Machado aren't playing well. That's fine. That happens in baseball all the time. But what keeps good teams winning when their stars are not playing is a well-rounded depth of a roster, a deep lineup where you can keep churning over and over and over again, and the bottom half could take care of business. The Padres, even though they have gotten good production out of some of the guys near the bottom of the order, like Jackson Merrill, who's been a great asset to this Padres team, hitting .308 this year, including him, and Tyler Wade playing his ass off, and Jose Azocar hitting a lot better than he did last year, and Luis Camposano off to a good start. Eggy Rosario has been hitting the ball hard. He's hitting .279. Despite all of that, those players are not the players that are going to carry a team when the top half doesn't do very well. Look at the Phillies' order. I mean, they got Nick Castellanos batting 7 right now. I know he's batting 181, but that's a 7-hitter for a team that's going to be making a run for a World Series. Padres' 7-hitter is Eggy Rosario. There's a difference there. Nick Castellanos on this Padres team would be batting in the top 4 spots in the order. He's batting 7th on the Phillies. Some perspective on teams and where they're going, and the perspective on the Padres and where they're going. To understand what they're competing with right now and having a little bit of a grip of reality that the Padres team just doesn't match up with the Phillies. And they're not the Braves. The Atlanta Braves, I mean, you look at the Atlanta Braves order, that is a murderer's row from top to bottom. And I get some of these teams are hot, but you know what? You're going to play teams that are hot all the time. The Padres need to find a way to get hot. Start looking at some of the competition at the top. Again, we've gone over this before. I've talked about on this show. The competition for the Padres to make the playoffs is not very good. And I think they could be able to make the playoffs because the playoffs are expanded and they could be able to find their way in. They got enough talent to be able to win some of those games and put together little runs here and there. But when we're talking about winning in the playoffs, I still think the rotation's probably good, although I didn't have as many concerns with Joe Musgrove at the beginning of the year. I've been watching him. I mean, he just does not look right. He does not look like he is fully Joe Musgrove. And I don't know what the deal is with him, but he just does not look very good right now. But the thing is you got to figure out a way to get him right because that's a major factor in this rotation. We said at the beginning of the year, you lose any member of this rotation and it falls off very quickly. They already lost Yu Darvish. I think Randy Vasquez has done a decent job for what it's worth, but that's a drastically different rotation. I think the bullpen is still an asset for the Padres despite, what happened on Thursday against the Rockies. But their biggest concern right now is their lineup. I don't know how many more times you can put Xander Bogaerts in the leadoff spot. I still disagree with it. It's not doing very well. Okay, he's batting .212. I know he did a little bit better in Colorado, and I'm a Bogaerts fan. I'm a big fan of Xander Bogaerts. I'm glad he's on the team. Am I glad he's on the team for $280 million? No, but I didn't give him the contract. He's on the team. You can't be upset about that anymore, and you're not getting rid of it. He's not the type of player where it's better to pay him $280 million to go away. He's better on your team at $280 than on another team getting $280 million. But I don't understand him in the leadoff spot. Fernando, I like up there. He's doing okay right now hitting .243. I mean, they hit Profar last night in the 3-hole. I know Profar is doing great. I'm a big Profar fan. I bought one of those Mr. Relevant t-shirts. I thought that's awesome. I love the vibes he brings. I think he's a great player when he plays here in San Diego. But let's think about this for a second. The Philadelphia Phillies are a team that's expected to compete for a World Series, and a National League pennant. That's what you're competing with in the playoffs, right? Because you just don't want to make the playoffs. You want to make a run in the playoffs. Padres won a World Series. They said they weren't punting on the season. Now we're all in. And I know it's timing up and down. You got to give Cronenworth the day off. It doesn't matter. They have Bryce Harper batting third. You have Jerickson Profar batting third. That is a major difference between two teams in the way they're constructed. And I like Profar. The Phillies have a guy like Kyle Schwarber leading off, which I don't understand why they have him leading off. I know they've been doing it the last couple of years just so he runs into one, I guess, and then you got to run on the board before the game starts. In reality, which happened on Friday. And this happened against the Padres a lot. But he's still a guy with just insane pop. Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, Alec Baum. I mean, JT Realmuto's batting sixth. Brandon Marsh is a solid, sixth hitter, hitting .293. Castellanos has had a miserable season, but he's still their seventh guy. Bryson Stott's not bad, .210, and Whit Merrifield. I mean, Whit Merrifield's a veteran there in the 9-hole. I'd rather have Merrill in the 9-hole than Whit Merrifield. But just look at their lineup. It's different. Phillies look way better than the Dodgers, by the way. I'll say that. I was not really impressed with that Dodgers team when the Padres played them. Now, maybe that's because they are a division team, so we see them all the time, but their bottom half is just not very good. Doesn't have the same depth as this Phillies team. And that Atlanta Braves team is another team you're going to have to compete with. Also, it's just a way different roster than what the Padres have. And we talked about it at the beginning of the season being a problem. They needed another bat. They needed a DH. They really need a first baseman. Didn't address any of it. Had some fool's gold early in the season because they came back against the Cubs. But I'm going to tell you right now, if it wasn't for last week or 2 weeks ago, if the Padres didn't come back against the Cubs and took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers on a little bit of a hot streak, Padres fans would just be heated right now with the way the team has been performing. They had to come back against Chicago. They had to come back against the Dodgers. Played well on Sunday Night Baseball. And that's been it for the season. I mean, that's been the highlight of the season. That Phillies team is really good. They're going to have to deal with them if they want to get to the place that they want to be. And I think a lot of Padres fans agree they want to be able to compete in the postseason, not just make the postseason. With the amount of money this team has spent on roster pieces, just making the postseason shouldn't be the end goal. It should be winning in the postseason. Because, again, you can make the postseason with way less of a payroll than the Padres do. The Padres paid for all these players because they want to win a World Series. They want to bring a championship to San Diego for the first time ever. Their current roster is not one of those. They don't have the means to do that. Now, trade deadline, I mean, we'll see what they decide to put together. I mean, if they're a buyer, they're going to have to go out there and buy, obviously, and fill out some of this roster. But are there just too many holes to fill to be able to be a team that's going to be able to compete for a World Series? What I've seen the last 2 nights have been 2 totally different teams. Just 2 totally different levels of baseball between the Phillies and the Padres. Phillies got a lineup that just rack together hits. They're hard to handle. They're like the Dodgers. And by the way, the Padres had a great opportunity to potentially put some pressure on the Dodgers 2 weeks ago. Kind of fumbled around against the Rockies, and then the week before. And now the Dodgers have won like 6 straight games. I mean, they're just pounding teams. They went up to Toronto and destroyed a Blue Jays club that knocked the Padres around a little bit. So it was only a matter of time before they started to get into a groove. I know the Braves lost last night to the Guardians, but that's another team that's just, I mean, their lineup is just way better. They got Jared Kelenic batting 9th in Atlanta. He's hitting .309. Travis d'Arnaud's their 8-hitter. He's batting .281. Orlando Arcia, Michael Harris II, Ozuna. They're all batting above .300. Their worst hitter in the lineup's Matt Olson. We know how good he is. I mean, these are the teams you have to compete with if you want to win in the postseason. So, yeah, we could sit here and beat around the bush. Hey, look, they're doing all right. But I'm going to tell you right now, with this Padres team, we said it before, and I'll say it again. They are around a mediocre level when it comes to their roster, which means they are talented enough where they're going to win some games they're not supposed to, yet they lack the depth to be able to continue those wins, go on long winning streaks, and they will lose games that they're not supposed to. And that's what it's going to be the entire season, I think. It's just going to be a lot of this, just up and down and up and down and up and down. And the difference between them making the playoffs and not will be, can they go on a winning streak more than 5 games at least once this season? And that'll be it. While also limiting losing streaks. Like, they can't lose today and put themselves in a 4-game hole or a 3-game hole under 500 and just kind of petter around for the next couple of weeks. We said at the beginning of the season as well. The first 2 months of the Padres is going to be very difficult. We all know this. And you can't make excuses about it that the other team in the other dugout's a good baseball team. They're all good baseball teams. It's Major League Baseball. But if the Padres could finish around 500 after the first 2 months, then they hopefully could go on a little bit of run as they get a little bit of ease into the schedule. But they can't dig themselves into a hole. And we've been through the schedule. I mean, after Atlanta, they got the Red Hot Reds coming in, who got a lot of young players that play hard and are a very good baseball team. And then they go play the Diamondbacks on the road, where they have had issues in the past. We talk about Coors Field all the time, but the Padres have had a problem playing at Chase in Arizona. That has been a house of horrors for the Padres, and that team's coming off a National League pennant. Then you go to Chicago, where you really got them on that comeback win, but it was tough sledding against the Cubs here at Petco Park. And then you welcome the Dodgers before playing a Rockies team that you've only beaten in a single season, in a season series once since 2016. And then you go to Atlanta, Cincinnati, and you welcome the Yankees. You got to turn things around as quickly as possible. Because before you know it, the Padres could be 5 to 6, maybe even 7 games under 500 by the time May is complete. And then you're really trying to come back. And you're really behind the 8 ball. So as we like to say on Andy and Elston, it's a much-win game today. A very much-win game. Not a must-win, but a much-win. And good news for Padres fans, back on the positive side, Taijuan Walker's on the hill. Padres have done really well against Taijuan Walker in the past. Hopefully they can salvage this series, put a laugher together on a Sunday afternoon, and at least go 1-2 against the Phillies. And to be honest with you, if you go 1-2 against the Phillies, even though it'd be nice to win the series at home, it would be an expected result against a team like Philadelphia, and then you can move on to next week. You can move on to next week against the Cincinnati Reds, which I think the Padres could compete with. The Reds they're not a world beater, even though they're pretty good. Padres got to figure it out, though. They can't find themselves into a losing streak here, and they definitely cannot get swept at home by the Fighting Phils. We're going to talk more about the Padres. We're going to talk more about, kind of where they're at, roster construction rise, whether or not they can overcome some of these potential downfalls and some bright spots as well. I mean, Eggy Rosario's been hitting the ball pretty well. I like him playing third base, too. We'll talk more about that. Plus, we'll get into the NFL draft. We'll recap some of that within the next hour. And then in the 9 o'clock hour, more Padres talk. And I want to get your phone calls. What are you guys feeling about the Padres right now? I'm seeing a lot of things in the chat, obviously. There's a lot of fans in there, still extra positive about it. And a lot of fans that are ready to punt on the season like Darren Bennett. I thought that was that was a pretty fun YouTube chat. Funny. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Let's talk about the Pods when we come back on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Welcome back to the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each and every Sunday morning from 8 to 10. I want to get to your phone calls today, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Get the phone lines going. What are you doing to talk about, Padres fans? That was a tough last couple of games, I got to say. It's been really tough to watch that. Just outplayed by a team that's just a lot better than what the Padres are. I mean, that's just flat out what it is. Hopefully today they could bounce back. Taijuan Walker, not very good, especially against the San Diego Padres. Reading a lot of your comments in the YouTube chat. Be sure to give us a follow and subscribe to us at 97 Through the Fan on YouTube. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. We are streaming live on that, B_SURP, BSURP. On YouTube, you can follow me also on Twitter and on Instagram, as well as TikTok at B_SURP. All of you guys in the YouTube chat right now, be sure to drop a like on the video. 1, 2, 3, click the like button. Thank you very much. And be sure to keep our notifications on. You can also find this show as a podcast wherever you find your podcasts. I also do a podcast on Tuesdays on my YouTube stream. So, again, more content. If you like what you hear on Sundays, you can check more of it out at B_SURP on YouTube, as well as 97 Through the Fan on YouTube. Love to get us another subscription on there. So, thanks again for all of you for making our day a part of yours. I wanted to get to your phone calls today, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Brandon in El Cajon wants to weigh in on the Padres. Brandon, what's going on?
Hey, good morning. I'm glad you got this Sunday show on. It's good.
Well, I appreciate that. It's good to talk some baseball on the weekend. That's not about the East Coast teams, Brandon. We could actually talk about some San Diego sports here in town.
Yeah. After watching them last year really close, it looks like the bright spot is these young kids, especially Jackson Merrill, and the young kids are the best part of the team right now. I think the problem is, these long-term contracts. They just look like guys who are rich and don't have the fire in the hole anymore.
I do like the young guy perspective of it, Brandon. I agree with that 100%. I thought going into the season, some of the bright spots that were going to be part of this team were the players that were young, trying to make a name for themselves, trying to get the contract on their own as well, giving that fire to help the veterans out in that dugout. I think that goes a long way. I was not expecting Jackson Merrill to be that guy, but he has been at 20 years old, now 21. And he has done a great job of trying to provide a spark from the position player standpoint. From a pitching standpoint, I thought the same thing with some of these young guys. I mean, Michael King's trying to show that he's a starter in Major League Baseball. Some of the guys that they got from the Yankees trade, trying to make a name for themselves in baseball and get an opportunity with the Padres that they might have not gotten with the New York Yankees, with that trade. So I like the young guys playing hard, but you know what? They are still learning to play at the major league level and aren't in a spot to carry the team. They just need to do it a couple of times. That's the thing with these roster construction Major League Baseball. You're expecting your high value, high money maker players, high payroll players on your roster to be able to win you games probably 7 to 8 out of 10 times. And then those other couple of times, the bottom part of your order, your young guys, step up and help out the ball club on the days that your top guys can't get the job done. And that's the case. I mean, the top guys aren't going to play well all the time, but you can't have a situation like last year where they didn't play well the entire year. I mean, at the end of the year, their stats looked pretty good, but it was just so inconsistent, and they couldn't get enough bats hot at the right time to go on a winning streak. And so far, it seems like the same thing going on in 2024.
Yeah, it really does. It looks exactly the same as last year, and to me, the biggest mistake they've made is giving these long-term contracts to all these players, and most, with the exception of Fernando, they're all, basically holes in the lineup now.
Yeah, you got some holes in the lineup. I mean, I'm not worried about Manny and Xander. I really don't like Xander in the leadoff spot, and we'll see how many times that they continue to put that together, and leave him in that spot. Those are some veterans for you. I don't think this is like the beginning and the end for some of these guys either. I think a lot of Padres fans, and here's the other thing too about Xander and Manny and some of these players on these big contracts. And Brandon, I appreciate the phone call. We got to get to a break soon. Thank you very much. And anybody else wants to join the show, 833-288-0973. I don't think it's the beginning of the end. I mean, obviously it's just a tough start for some of these guys, but I think Padres fans are just terrified of a couple of things. One, nobody likes Xander's contract. That's fine. I don't like the contract either. It was a position you didn't need. It was a player you didn't really need. I like having Xander on the team, though. I think he's a good leader. I think he's a good veteran player. I think he has a great attitude. Nobody is more upset than Xander when it comes to his performance. And you could tell it bothers him when he doesn't do well. I like guys like that. I mean, he's gonna put it in. It's not like some of the other players that we've had where they got the big contract and they're saying glove's sick, bro. Like I don't need those players on my team. If I'm going to give you a big contract, it's because you work hard and this game means something to you. This game means something to Xander Bogaerts. But I think with the contract that he got, I think a lot of people are just assuming that, well, he got the big contract and now he's near the end. We didn't really want him. We didn't really need him. And now look, we have this 30-something-year-old that's already not playing well. I mean, he's not playing well now at 32. I mean, what is he going to look like at 43? Relax, guys. He's going to have some good years. He's going to have some down years. But he's still in the prime of his career right now, and it might just be a little bit older than it usually is. I want to get back to your phone calls, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. I'll be reading some of your YouTube chats as well. Be sure to subscribe to us. Give us a like. When we come back, get to more of your phone calls. If you called in, wait on hold. We'll get to you on the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each and every Sunday from 8 to 10 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Welcome back to the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each and every Sunday morning from 8 to 10. Talking Padres baseball. The Padres fans, obviously, tough couple of nights, last two nights here at Petco Park. Still selling out the building, though. Still a fun place to be. San Diego Padres taking on the Phillies this afternoon. Will be a 1:10 start right here on 97.3 The Fan, Padres flagship station, as well as the Eco Water SoCal pregame show with Sam Levitt coming up at 12:10 right here on San Diego's number one sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Thanks again for all of you guys joining us on YouTube today. Be sure to hit the like button. Subscribe to us on 97.3 The Fan. Subscribe to us on Braden Surprenant YouTube page at B_SURP. You can follow me on social media, BSurp. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all the same. BSurp. Follow me on all of those platforms as well as YouTube. Everything's the same. BSURP. B_SURP. All the same. Been talking a lot of Padres. And again, 833-288-0973. 833-288-0973 about kind of this weekend being a reality check for the Padres. It's been kind of a major reality check, I think. And I know it's early in the season. But there's only so many times you can say that. And as we learned last year, nobody wants to hear it's early anymore. You know, last year at a point where they lost those two games to LA here by the score of 2-1 and 5-2 in 10 innings. Dropped them to 18 and 17. And then they lost 8 out of their next 10. Correction. They lost 9 out of their next 10 by losing 2 in Minnesota, getting swept by LA, and then going 1-2 against the Royals before going 1-2 against the Red Sox. It's been that, and then all of a sudden it was Padres were sitting at 20 and 26, trying to climb out of a hole in the middle of May. This Padres team needs to get a win today. It's not a must win, but a much win, as we say in Annie and Elston. Because with the schedule coming up, it's not as easy as it was during that stretch. The Twins weren't very good at that point in the year last year. The Royals were awful, and the Red Sox were just kind of puttering around for a while before the Padres ended up beating the Nationals on the road for a long East Coast road trip that I think a lot of people thought they would be hitting their stride again before coming back home, and then much of the same. Just kind of a little up and a little down. We got the Reds coming into town next week, and then the Padres will go on the road to take on Arizona and Chicago before hosting the Dodgers and the Rockies, going back on the road to take on Atlanta and Cincinnati, and then hosting the Yankees. That's a lot more difficult of a schedule this year at this time than last year at this time. That's why it was so important to potentially take 3 wins in Colorado and not leave there 2-2, because that was the safety net of this month. Just like the Rockies in May are the safety net of the month before they play the Marlins at the end of the season, or at the end of the month of May. So, much win game today for the Padres against the Phillies. 833-288-0973. 833-288-0973. Go back to the phones. Eric in San Diego waiting on hold. Eric, you're on the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each and every Sunday. What's going on?
Hi, hello?
What's going on?
Hello? Hello? Who's there? You there?
I'm here, Eric.
Hello? Okay, good. I hear, I listen to your program time to time. I listen, folks. I'm not pumping myself up, but I'm a 9-year veteran with 4 different organizations, never even got a swing in the big leagues, but I know everybody. And one of the things that bugs the crap out of me about San Diego Padres, just so you know, you're not talking to a Padre fan. I had a kid who played for the Dodgers for 8 years and then traded to the Padres, and we couldn't figure out what happened, and then we did find out a month later that Bud Black went to they fired Bud Black. Okay, so here's the one thing that I got to say. I played on some really shitty teams, but on those teams were good players, man. We're talking about the creme de la creme, especially with the Red Sox, and we did shitty. in Pawtucket. But you know what? You don't disintegrate a good ball club. God, if you're a Padre fan, you got to go crazy. That stupid GM, they pay all this money so the owner dies and they all get like what? You've already got the team that wins. You've already got the team that's winning. Okay, so they had some weird things to start. Oh, hello. That happens to a lot of pro players. Okay, but look at that lineup they had last year. Oh, my God, those kids could play. You make a few moves. Tatis finally pulls his head out of his ass instead of riding a bike down there and F's up his shoulder. I mean, that's because he's a kid. And I was so frustrated, even though I'm not a Padre fan now. You're not talking about a fan here. And I couldn't believe it, the stupidity that where our Padres are now. It's like you guys analyze all this. God, you talk about these murders row everywhere. They brought in Xander, and come on, the kid can play. And you add a few of those guys, and the kid, the pitcher, what's his name? King, I think it is, from the Yankees. I mean, you bring him in, and then I jumped ahead of myself. You know, the kid that got traded to the Yankees for these people. Oh, my God. They trade the best hitter on the freaking team. Like, huh? Hello? I mean, you got the team. Now, I guarantee you guys, guaranteed they're not going to the playoffs. If they go to the playoffs, they're going to go in by their skin. And when they get there, they can't compete with the real clubs. Look at the Philadelphia Phillies. I know Bryce Harper. My kid played against Bryce Harper when he was a kid. And that's a real ball club. The Atlanta Braves, a real ball club. The Los Angeles Dodgers, come on, I'm a Dodger fan, grew up a Dodger fan. Come on, man. Look at the Dodgers. The Dodgers have everything. Of course. How are we going to compete with the Dodgers? It's called hello. Anyway, I like your program. I like to listen to it on Sunday mornings on the way to church. So I'll pray for all of our Padres and our Padre fans.
I appreciate the call, Eric. You cannot say the S word on the radio, though. That's why I dumped you twice. But there's a couple of things. Eric said some good things. He said some bad things. Part of that deal. The good things, obviously, are, he's right. I mean, the Padres lineup construction and what they have put together for this team this year is not nearly what it was for the last couple of seasons. It's not. I mean, we talked about it all the time in 2022 when it came to the Padres lineup in the postseason. I mean, they had a lineup that would be close to what that Phillies lineup is. Right? I mean, they had like Josh Bell hitting in the middle of the order, and like Ha-Seong Kim was like batting 7th or 8th. I mean, on a good team, on a team that is a playoff-driven team, Cronenworth and Kim are near the bottom of the order. That's just facts. Okay, Jake Cronenworth, I think he's doing a great job. Okay, I don't want to knock his play. He's doing great. And it's not his fault, but on playoff teams, he ain't batting 3rd. He's just not. So from that perspective, yes, he is correct. Now, some circumstances, obviously, with money. You can't just keep all those guys if you're the Padres. The difference between the Phillies, the Braves, and the Dodgers and the Padres, even though the Padres have been spending money, the budgets are different. We're playing by different rules. Now, this ain't your Padres anymore. This is not the 2010 Padres where they're trying to do everything they can with like $50 million. I mean, they do have money to spend, and they will spend that money, but they have reached to the top of that threshold right now. And they got to find ways to balance out the roster. See, that's the difference, too. The Padres spent a lot of money, but they don't have it all spread out amongst the team, whereas those teams that Eric had listed has it spread out amongst the entire roster, where they're loaded at every single spot. Atlanta did it in a spot that, and it's very difficult. It's hard to do. Because, again, if you want to kind of copy what Atlanta did, you have to give, like, Jackson Merrill a contract extension right now. Or very, very soon. Because everybody always wants to know how Atlanta was able to get Ozzie Albies this cheap long-term deal through his prime years, and Acuna and Austin Riley. I mean, you go through the contracts of the Atlanta Braves, and people think they fleeced their players. They didn't fleece their players. They gave their players a offer at their age that they couldn't refuse. They bought out arbitration years. They bought out that first round of free agency. They gave them guaranteed money, where before they were making league minimum. They didn't have to do that. They were actually spending more up front than they would later. And they took a risk on the players that they drafted and signed and developed, because they knew that those players are going to be good because they drafted/signed them and they developed them. They'd seen them play at the organization. They knew they were going to be really good baseball players. They offered him a contract really early on where people are like, why are you giving this guy a deal? You don't even know if he can sustain this at the major league level. Right? But they gave him the contracts. That was the risk, right? The risk was you give them the contract when they're super young, not knowing if they can hang in the major leagues for a long period of time. And the benefit is you don't have to spend a lot of money on a team individually because you're giving Ozzie Albies $8 million. Padres are paying their second baseman $25 million. Now, same thing with Acuna. Acuna's deal is very team-friendly, but again, they got him when he was super young. It's the same thing with the Diamondbacks and Corbin Carroll. The Diamondbacks drafted and developed Corbin Carroll. They know he's going to be a stud. That's the risk, at least. What did they do last year? They signed him super early on. They gave him a contract extension after a very small sample size and gave the kid an offer he couldn't refuse. Because you're thinking about injuries potentially and maybe falling off of play. You've got guaranteed money that's more than you don't have to go to arbitration. It's more than league minimum, and it's tough to just be like, I'm going to turn that down. And again, money is worth more today than it is tomorrow. That's why Jackson Cherio in Milwaukee already is under contract for a long period of time. That's the risk Milwaukee's taking. They're trying to go the path of the Braves. So if you want to continue to do that, you're going to have to sign Jackson Merrill to a long-term deal as soon as possible. Now, the difference is, though, because people in the chat are like, they can't get locked in another long-term contract. If they give Jackson Merrill a long-term contract, they're giving him like $10 million a year. I mean, they're going to give him something ridiculously low, but it's something he can't refuse. If you're getting, what's the league minimum now, like $750,000? You're getting $750,000 now, and your employer is willing to give you upwards to $10 million for the next 5 or 6 years, even though you might think if you stay along on this $750, you could probably get $15 to $20 million after that time is up. You got to take the $10 million a year for the next 5 years. You can't leave that on the table. I wonder if, I know Juan Soto's having a great year, but if he doesn't have a great rest of the year, or he ends up signing for less than the $400 and whatever million he was offered by Washington, he's going to be kicking himself that he missed out on money. But if you want to go the route of the Braves, because here's what fans say all the time, well, the Braves can do it. The Braves took the risk of, we're going to sign these guys when they're super young, and there's no guarantee that they're going to be the players that we think they're going to be. That's the risk. But we're going to get them for not a lot of money. And in the future, when the contract value it goes down just because of inflation and all the other factors that factor into money, obviously, because, again, it's worth more today than it is tomorrow, you end up paying Ozzie Albies $8 million in his final 3 or 4 years when he's 29, 30 years old, and then you know what they're going to do? They're going to let him walk. I guarantee you the Braves are going to let Ozzie Albies walk at the end of his contract. And they're going to move on to the next guy that they drafted or developed. And that's why they have the resources to sign a guy like Sean Murphy after a trade and go get a Matt Olson. Because they gave their young guys these offers they couldn't refuse that are team-friendly contracts. And then they go get a big bopper. And then they go get another arm that they need. And they make a trade. And then they're still around the same payroll as the Padres, right? But they don't have as many holes as the Padres do. Now, we talked about the holes in this roster that the Padres have. We've talked about how they want to reset the CBT, which is all fine and dandy. But I think it's going to be a hard press to try to make that happen at the trade deadline with all the holes they have to fill. I think you're okay with the outfield right now, especially in center and right, but you could probably use an upgrade in left. I mean, Profar should be a guy off the bench back and forth, even though he's playing well. You really need a first baseman. You need a DH. That's 3 spots. And right now, but with the way that Joe Musgrove is pitching and Yu Darvish being hurt, you're probably going to need a starter. I mean, those are like 4 pieces that you're going to try to get while staying under the CBT. That's going to be a challenge for the Padres. 833-288-0970. I can't believe Eric had that like whole rant, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, by the way, I'm going to church right now. I'm going to pray for everybody." Thanks, Eric. Let's watch the language a little bit, my guy. Hour number 2 coming up next. More Padres talk. Braden Surprenant Show, live and local. 97 through the Fan. Welcome back to the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local, each and every Sunday morning. We'll take your phone calls today, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Padres, Phillies coming up at 1:10 Pacific time on San Diego's number one sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Eco Water SoCal pregame show with Sam Levitt coming up at 12:10 as we continue to be live and local for as many hours as possible during the week here. Now into Sundays with my show. And it's great to talk Padres baseball with all you fans out there in the chat. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a like. Click like on the YouTube video. Gives us a nice little path on the algorithm. We'll send this out to other Padres fans that haven't seen us on YouTube yet, as well as follow my YouTube page at B_SURP, BSURP. You also follow me on Twitter and TikTok and Instagram at the same handle, and we appreciate the support. I do want to get to more of your phone calls. We got a couple of guys calling in, Steve and Paolo, Rolando, and Chula Vista. Just please wait on hold. I'm going to get to you in a second. I do want to mention the Braves payroll for a second because I talked about it before. I mean, Ozzie Albies making $7 million. He's making $7 million this year, $7 million next year, and 2 club options. Ozzie's 27, so he'll be 28 next year. They have a club option at age 29 for $7 million, and a club option for $7 million when he's 30 years old. I mean, he's going to be a Brave for the next 4 years. It's going to cost him nothing. By the way, his AAV, $5 million. What a steal. Adam Duvall's making $3 million this year. Orlando Arcia is making $2 million this year. All playing above expectations. Michael Harris II. That's another player, right? He's 23 years old. They drafted and developed Michael Harris II. Been outstanding for the Braves. He signed an 8-year, $72 million contract with club options. Again, all club options. No player options, no mutual options. All club options. So the club has the final say. 8-year, $72 million deal. Michael Harris II, one of the best up-and-coming prospects in Major League Baseball, and now a proven Major League player. Gave him a contract, very young, $5 million this year, $8 million, $8 million, $9 million, $10 million, $10 million, $12 million. What is $12 million going to look like in 2030? You know what it's going to look like? It's going to look like $5 million. Only $9 million towards the cap of the competitive balance tax. The Atlanta Braves' risk is giving players contracts before they become everyday major leaguers and proven major league talent. But you know what? They do such a great job at drafting and developing their players. They know these guys are going to be studs, and so the risk is not that high for the Atlanta Braves. So again, as much as, and I've seen Padres fans say this all the time, they're like, "Look, like we gotta sign deals like the Braves. They're like offering these low contracts. They're not offering low contracts. The risk they're taking is signing them before they're proven, right? It would have been like us. It would have been like the Padres, not us, not part of the team. It would be like the Padres signing Fernando to that 14-year deal after that first weekend series against the Giants in 2019. But giving him like $8 to $10 million a year. Right? Because at the point that the Padres ended up giving Fernando the contract extension, he had already had the big year with all the home runs and was going off and, you know, face of Major League Baseball and all that stuff. So you had to give him like $24 million a year. You know, on the AAV, whatever. But if they would have signed, like after he got that base, be like giving him that contract, he got the base hit on Madison Bumgarner day 1 of 2019. If he had the contract either before that point or after that series, that's the risk you take. Now, that being said, if all of those things transpired off the field with Fernando too, you know, with the wrist and the shoulder and the pop for the PED usage, right, with the suspension, you know, Padres are like, I can't believe we gave this guy a huge contract. But I tell you what, they'd be paying like $5 to $6 million for this guy. like the Atlanta Braves. I mean, that's the big difference here. I mean, look at the Padres. Fangraphs does a great job with the roster resource. You can see the payroll. I mean, look at the comparisons between the two rosters. Padres payroll last year was $255 million, and the Braves payroll last year was $205 million. Atlanta Braves had a lot better of a team top to bottom. Didn't make it very far, but they did make the playoffs. This year it's $230 million, a lot more than the Padres payroll, but again, the Padres are trying to stay under that luxury tax, and the Braves are going for it with some of their signings. Go out and look. I mean, they're not paying guys a lot of money. The two contracts that might burn Atlanta, Austin Riley and Matt Olson, because Riley's 27 and Olson's 30, and they're paying them both till about 2030. And those guys are not making $8 million. They're making $22 million each every year. So those two players could potentially be those albatross contracts that you see a lot throughout Major League Baseball, and you see a lot on the San Diego Padres. I did want to mention that because we were talking about that before we went to break. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Let's go out to Steve in Poway. Wants to weigh in on the Braden Surprenant show. Steve, you're on the air. What's going on?
Hey, good morning, Braden. Hey, listen, this is the first time I've heard your show, and I'm just driving down the road, and I'm listening to this guy going, this guy's as solid as anybody I've heard on the radio as far as the way I look at the Padre team. So I just want to give you that heads up to start with. You deserve an afternoon show based on what I'm listening to. Number two, one of the frustrating things, Annie said something on Friday. She made a statement and said, we just have to wait for the superstars to start playing. Well, two things wrong with that statement. Number one, you shouldn't have to wait a month into the season for so-called superstars to start playing. Number two, let's change the name from superstar to high-priced players until they deserve to be called superstars. None of those guys are superstars to me. I can only base it on what I've seen the last couple of years. I don't care about the past. I just care about what's happening now in the future. Bogart's not a superstar. Since he's been with the Padres, he's been average at best. Manny Machado, not a superstar. You can say he's a good player. He's not a superstar. Fernando is a star. Cronenworth's not a superstar. He's a good player. Ha-Seong Kim's not a superstar. Those guys are average players, most of them. And we'll wait for the superstars. Well, do you see anybody that you can call a superstar based on what we've seen the last couple of years? I don't see it. The guys that are producing are Profar, Jackson Merrill, Ha-Seong Kim should be leading off. When Bogart comes up to plate, he looks like he's sleepwalking when he comes up there. When Ha-Seong Kim comes up plate, nothing but energy. You get energy from the fans. You get energy from him. And I like Schultz. I was glad that they got him. The only problem I got with him is I think he's a little bit stubborn, and he needs to wake up a little bit and go, this isn't working. Bogart should not be leading off. Ha-Seong Kim should be leading off, in my opinion. You get a little spark going with the team at the beginning of the order, and somebody that looks like they're sleepwalking up there.
I agree with some of those points. Disagree with a couple too, but that's what Sports Talk Radio is for. I mean, I do agree with you can't wait for the superstars, and I said that earlier in the show. I mean, the thing is the guys that you give the big contracts to, they're expected to perform at a high level for the majority of the season, not a month in, as you laid out. I agree with that. The other thing too is, and I said it before, they should be the reason you win probably 7 to 8 times out of 10, right? Should be the top of the order, the guys that you're giving the $25 million a year to. They should be, I don't like using the term carrying the team because there's a lot of contributing factors that go into team wins and team losses, but those should be the guys that, for lack of a better term, carry the team. And then those other 2 times, it should be the bottom half of the order, right? I mean, the good teams in Major League Baseball, and I know we hate talking about the Dodgers. They're a good team. Let's talk about the Phillies. We'll talk about the Phillies. Phillies kicked our ass the last couple of days. Kicked the Padres' ass the last couple of days. That Phillies team, when they have rough outings out of the top of their order, like a Bryce Harper. I mean, there's times where I see Bryce Harper hit 4 absolutely missiles for outs. Bottom of the order picks him up. And that's what you need. You need a lengthy lineup that can do that. And right now, the Padres, they have their top half again not doing what they were paid to do, doing what they've done the last last year in particular, and then you have a bottom of the order that Jackson Merrill's trying to pull his weight, and all these guys are trying to help the team, but they don't have enough depth down there to continually do it night in and night out, where you're flipping the roles of the high-priced players and the low-priced players. Right now, it seems like the Padres' bottom half of the order are trying to win them the games 7 to 8 times out of 10, and the top half is only winning you games, 2 or 3 times out of the last 10 wins.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Well, I appreciate the phone call, Steve. I appreciate the kind words.
Okay.
Thanks again for joining the show today, and look forward to your phone call next Sunday, maybe. We'll mix it up a little bit more. I'll get back to the phones, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Rolando in Chula Vista, you're on the Braden Surprenant Show. What's going on?
How's it going?
Doing well.
How you doing? I want to disagree with the first caller. We had to get rid of Soto because he's gonna be asking for a boatload of money in the off season, and only a market like the Yankees, like New York, couldn't afford him. So we had to make that move. It was going to be impossible to pay him. He's going to want like Ohtani money. We just don't have that. So we were able to come up with 2 good pitchers in that trade. We had King, and then we ended up getting Dylan Cease, which in turn made our rotation stronger. And you win in baseball, you win with pitching and defense, and that's what the Padres are doing. They have hungry players who some people might say they're average, but they play with heart and they play with passion. And we have team chemistry with Profar back on a team, and the heart and soul, which Manny Machado called Costum King, the heart and soul of the Padres. We have I would rather have players like that than high price players. I mean, Soto was a good player, but at the end of the day, we need to spread out the money evenly, like you said earlier. And that's what the Padres are. They're trying to spend their money wisely now instead of foolishly. So they're going to get the W today. They ran into the Philadelphia Phillies, who have been hot recently. So it's a bad matchup. But overall, I mean, I think we'll make the playoffs, man. I mean, because we have players who fight, who play with passion, who play the game right, and we have pitching and defense. And it kind of reminds me of 2010 when the Padres they were pretty much mediocre offensively, but the difference between this team and that team is that we have players like we have stars. Like I don't care what anyone says, but Machado is a star. He's a Gold Glover. We have a Platinum Glover, a Gold star, and Fernando Tatis. We have Bogarts who almost went 20 home runs, 20 stolen bases last year. These are high caliber players. We're similar to the 2010 Padres. I mean, they had 90 wins that season, and they won with pitching and defense, and our pitching is outstanding. I mean, King almost threw a no-hitter the other day, which we got in the Yankee trade, and we have good defense. One more thing before I let you go, before I get off of the phone, is I agree with you on Merrill, man. We need to sign him, man, because he's the next up and comer. He's a star, and everybody knows it. So you pay that, and we're selling out the stadium every game. So we're gonna have the money to pony up the money to pay for Merrill. We need to take care of the players we got now, instead of like Hassan Kim as well. Instead of like looking for more high priced players. That's all I got to say. Go Padres.
I appreciate the phone call, Rolando. Some good things in there, some things I disagree with. Obviously, a positive thing as well. I mean, the 2010 team, the 2010 team's a lot different. I mean, right now, let's put it from this perspective, too. That 2010 team, was like 500 for the first 12 games, and then they started to turn it on. And they were playing really good baseball early, and then that propelled them throughout the rest of the season. I mean, through 30 games in 2010, the Padres were 19-11. This Padres team's 14-16. This Padres team has better players at the top than that 2010 team did. 2010 team had some good hard-nosed players. Here's where I have to, like, you know, I have to say something about the message from the team, and I get it, dude. I've been part of teams, and on the inside, it's like we got grinders, we got to grind it out. Like, we got guys that are ball players. Like, I get that. That's fine, and that's how it should be in the clubhouse. And I don't think they should pay attention to the outside noise anyway. But I'm gonna tell you right now, Mike Schultz doing the right thing by saying this in the media because he's defending his guys. I like it. I liked his little pep talk that he gave, after they lost to Colorado. Fine. Okay? There's multiple ways to handle that situation. He obviously was fuming at what transpired in the last game in Colorado. I get there. I've been there. I've done that. He's probably the better man than me. I don't have to sit through a press conference with my team that I coach at a way different level, way lower level in a different sport after a loss. He has to go talk to the media. I would have been so infuriated. I would have said something dumb. Again, but that's the experience Mike Schultz has, and he's a pro, and he's a major league manager. He said the right things, right? He didn't throw his team under the bus. He defended their decisions. He opened up he's like, this is why we did the X, Y, Z. I got good guys in there. We got good group. We're gonna bounce back. That's fine. Said all the right things. The Padres have been saying all the right things the entire year. But until they start doing the right things, I'm sorry. It falls on deaf ears with me. There's only so many times we could sit here and be like, yeah, we got grinders, we got guys that work hard. They're out there to win. Yada yada yada. I get it. I mean, but to me, it's the actions that speak louder than the words. If Mike Schultz has that little speech right there, right? Everybody was fired up about it. We got guys that never quit. They go down to the final. Great. I'm not saying they don't. But what I'm saying is it's hard to have that speech and then the next two games get run out of your own building against the Phillies. You have to find other ways to win baseball games. Whether it be stealing bases or playing some small ball or doing whatever you need to do. I'm not saying this team needs to bunt more, but when you run into a red-hot team, good teams find different ways to win. So to me, I mean, it's hard to hear sometimes from the clubhouse telling me the same stuff all the time. Top of the batting order needs to be a lot better. And here's the other thing. I do think, and we're going to get to more of your phone calls. Chris in Scripps Ranch is on hold. We're going to get to him when we come back. But Fernando said it on Eric Hosmer's little podcast thing. When you move positions, it kind of affects the guy at the plate. I think that's a big reason why Manny's off to a slow start is because he's DHing. The guy's used to playing every day at third base. Got to see Manny back at third base. Get him right so he could be back out there. I don't know what Xander's deal is, but you paid the money. This is your team. You got to roll with these guys. We'll get back to your phone calls when we come back. Chris in Scripps Ranch is on hold. A little Major League perspective. 833-288-0973. 833-288-0973. This is the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each and every Sunday morning on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Welcome back to the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each and every Sunday morning from 8 to 10. We got 2 segments left. Thing flew by. Show flew by. I'll be going over to Fowler Park at Cunningham Field. Finale of a 3-game series between San Diego and Gonzaga. Battle for first place. San Diego won the first 2 games 5-4 and 14-2. To take a 1-game lead in the West Coast Conference standings. A sweep today would put them 2 games in front and in a good spot. We'll see how the boys do over at Fowler Park. UC San Diego playing host to Hawaii this weekend, and San Diego State on the road taking on New Mexico. Great interaction today from the fans in the YouTube chat. Appreciate all of you. Be sure to hit the like on the YouTube. And again, thanks again for all the callers calling in today and weighing in. We got another caller on the line. Chris in Scripps Ranch joined the show. Chris, what's going on? How's your Sunday morning?
Hey, Braden. It's going well, man. It's beautiful out.
Oh, no. I think we lost Chris. Oh, might have got him back.
Hold on. Can you hear me now?
I got you.
Hold on.
Oh, no. He's going to call us back. Chris Richards, a good guy, and played professionally with the Baltimore Orioles organization. It's got some good inside perspective on a lot of different things, especially with the Padres, hometown guys. So hopefully he calls us back. But we're talking Padres baseball, getting ready for Padres and Phillies, wrapping up a 3-game series here at 1:10 p.m. Pacific time on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Sam Levitt will have the EcoWater SoCal pregame show coming up at 12:10 on The Fan. It's been tough watching this Padres team the last couple of days. I mean, they just look like they are in a different league than the Philadelphia Phillies. And, to me, and we've talked about it, we went through the contracts and stuff like that and comparisons with Atlanta and stuff, but, they got to get better production at the top of their order. And they got to be able to find different ways to grind out and win ball games. I mean, it's just been tough sledding right now. And again, I know it's early, and I know that's what the message was last year, but they got to be able to flip it around and do it a lot quicker. Let's get back to Chris in Scripps Ranch. Chris, what's going on?
Hey, man. Can you hear me?
I got you now.
All right. Good deal. I just want to say that I'm a little. I think this week is an important week for Mike Schill. He kind of, saw some adversity in some of his managerial moves, and when Dennis Lynn, asked him about Wandy Peralta, not having his control, and he kind of reacted, pretty aggressive, and I think he knows that he kind of screwed that up. The last time I saw Peralta was against the Giants, and he hit 2 left-handed batters because he didn't have his release point on his arm side. He just couldn't find his fastball. And if you watch him pitching in the early at-bats, and when he came out, he had the same issue. Everything was up and in or in the left-handed box with his fastball. So Dennis Lynn was right. He did not have his stuff. And when Peralta's up and in and he can't find his fastball, you got to be ready to pull him. And so I'm worried about that. I'm worried about the language he used with Jackson Merrill having a little ouchie. I mean, that's so well in the clubhouse. And, to treat a rookie like that, I get it. Maybe you're thinking that will toughen him up or whatever, but that doesn't play too well. And, it kind of reminded me, this time of the year last year, if you remember, Xander had a 30-game on base streak, right? And he hit a line drive to right field that the right fielder made a diving play and short hopped the ball. And, Soto's out there. He doesn't know what he's doing as a base runner. And he came all the way back to first base. Anyway, it cost Bogarts that on-base streak. And stuff like that, those little things, chemistry-wise in the clubhouse can be dangerous. So I don't think there's anything with the players right now. But as far as the manager goes, I think the other caller was right. I think he's a little stubborn, and I think Hassan Kemp should lead off. But this is an important week. If they lose today, they better come out strong against the Reds. And, I think it's a pivotal week. We'll see what happens.
Chris, I appreciate the insight. Appreciate the phone call. Thanks again, and look forward to talking to you again. And I agree with Chris. I mean, it is a big week. I mean, as much as I'm not ready to fire Mike Schilt yet by any means, and I don't think Chris is either. But as much as we've given the narrative going into the season, like Mike Schilt's so much better than Bob Melvin, and Mike Schilt's so much better than Bob Melvin, and this is so great, and we got our manager now, and yada yada yada. Like it seems like we hear all the time. And everything has been good. I mean, the first sign of a little bit of not going your way, and it got a little iffy there in the post game press conference. I mean, I get where Mike Schilt's coming from though too. I mean, they obviously, like, from a coaching perspective, it's easy to say, and sit in your ivory tower and be like, you screwed this up. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Especially after the fact. Obviously, the rules now. I mean, I think, to be honest with you, if they didn't have the 3-batter minimum, I think Mike Schilt probably would have pulled him. And then you got to worry about who's hot and who's not. So I understand where he's coming from on that. I do. I didn't like the language of ouchie either. I think that's kind of weak. I think that's kind of soft. I don't think that. I'm sure Jackson's getting some crap from that from the other players in the clubhouse as well. And just it's the way you handle yourself and the way that they go about their things. And he brings up a good point with the on base streak getting snapped last year because of Juan Soto not knowing what's going on. I mean, these are all things that need to be taken care of in house. With the Padres, and that seems to be a little bit different than what other teams do. And this is a very important week. I mean, you're starting to play some very important games here in the next couple of days against the Reds, who are red hot, and then you got to again go after the Arizona Diamondbacks, and then the Cubs, who have been playing good baseball again. Dodgers, you get a break with the Rockies, but you split with them last time. I mean, you're the only team to lose twice to the Rockies all season. And then you go back into playing tough teams on the road at Atlanta, who's got one of the best lineups in baseball, and then go in to play Cincinnati. And then you got the Yankees. This is a very pivotal couple of weeks here for the Padres, and they got to be able to bounce back, or this can and could unravel very quickly on the Pods, which is something obviously not a lot of people want to see this early in the season. Got to get some better play out of the top of the order. Got to be able to put together better at-bats. Got to be able to take advantage of opportunities, find different ways to win, and some guys need to step up, especially after the last 3 games played. You got to snap the 3. You can't be losing more than 3 games in a row. It's going to happen from time to time. But you can't go on very long losing streaks, and you got to try to continue the winning streaks as long as possible. Final segment coming up next. We'll talk more Padres, maybe dive into the NFL draft a little bit, give you my take on what I thought of the first couple of rounds of the draft. I mean, you get to the nitty-gritty of it, and there's a lot of picks flying off the board. Who looked good, who did not, and get you ready for Padres and Phillies coming up at 1:10 p.m. Pacific time. This is the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each and every Sunday morning from 8 to 10 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Final segment of the Braden Surprenant Show. Live and local each and every Sunday morning from 8 to 10. I'm Braden Surprenant. Thanks again for tuning in. San Diego's number one sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Thanks to all of you for joining us today. A lot of phone calls. Loved it. 833-288-0973. 833-288-0973. Still got some time to get in your thoughts on the San Diego Padres if you would like. Also got the comments in the YouTube chat as well. Thanks you for all of you making our day a part of yours. And make sure you like and comment on the YouTube page. Give us a subscription. If you haven't subscribed to the fan account yet, be sure to do that. You can also subscribe to my account as well at B_SURP on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at B_SURP. Got a lot of interaction today on social media. Appreciate that. Talking Padres baseball and how the Padres got to get out to Snide today and take down the Philadelphia Phillies. It'd be nice to be able to salvage the series, especially before taking on a Cincinnati Reds team that is definitely red hot right now. I mean, they're playing really good baseball, doing a really good job this season, and are one of those teams that the Padres are going to be competing with when it comes to a wild card spot. I mean, I don't think that has really changed all too much right now. I mean, I think the Padres are still a team that can compete for a playoff spot. I still think they can, go on a run at some point in time. We're still yet to really see that, and it took them a long time last year to really do that. But again, at 14-16 and, a lot of things that are relatively staying the same, it's tough to really believe what's coming out of, the clubhouse sometimes on some of the messages. They're saying all the right things, but we're going to start getting into show me time over tell me time. And we'll see what happens in the next couple of games, because these next 2 weeks are very important for the Padres. To be honest with you, until the end of May, until Memorial Day, we're going to find out a lot about this Padres team and whether or not they can kind of go up and down. Again, they're going to have to win some series against some really good teams here. And they are going to play some red-hot teams as well. I mean, the Reds are 15-12, have done a great job. I think they smashed the Rangers last night, or maybe that was Friday. But they've been pretty excellent for most of the season. Yeah, they beat the Rangers last night 8-4. And on Friday, the Reds lost to the Rangers 2-1. But then they split with this Phillies team last week. I mean, they were trading blows to this Phillies team last week in Cincinnati. So this is no slouch of a team coming in after Philadelphia leaves. And then you got to go on the road and play in a place that you haven't played well almost ever since they built the place over in the desert. A very important month of May coming up for the San Diego Padres. You don't want to be in a hole that's too large to come out of, especially when you're trying to just keep pace with the rest of the division and the wild card standings. I mean, the Dodgers have already won 5 games in a row this week, and they've improved their stock to 18-11, have really pulled themselves away from the pack already. It was only a matter of time, and they jumped on it pretty early. So we'll see what the Padres can put together here. But, winners of the last 6 for the Dodgers. Padres sitting still in second place with the San Francisco Giants. I mean, the good thing the Giants and the Diamondbacks haven't really been able to figure it out yet, but they're already 4.5 games out of first, 2.5 out of wild card. It's still early, though, so we can't be super upset about that. But it would be nice to have a positive run differential and be nice for the Padres to go on a little bit of a run here. 3-7 in their last 10. Get back to the phones, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Great participation today out of the fans. Let's go down to National City. Carlos standing by. Carlos, what's going on?
Hey, good morning. A couple of things. One, can you do me a favor and tell Ben, because I was listening to Ben in the woods, and every time Ben goes on vacation, the Padres do terrible. They were talking about it, and
it's Ben's fault. You know what? I'm on board. Let's put the blame on Ben. You know what? Forget everything I said in the last 2 hours. I agree with you, Carlos. This is Ben Higgins' fault. That's a good point. I didn't realize that.
and not only that, but I know a lot of people are against it. I know Ben and Woods are against it, but honestly, if Musgrove's throwing these meatballs, Trevor Bauer is looking more and more better, and I get it, the past, of everything that's been going on, but I want to see this city, get a ring. I want to see the city get a ring before my dad passes. It's one of those things. I want to share that moment with my parent, my kids. So I'm like, anything to get a ring is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. I mean, I think Joe he doesn't look right now. I mean, he just doesn't look like himself. I mean, the velocity's down. You go look at his baseball savant page. It's not very good. He's not his usual self, and I don't know what he needs to do to get right, and whether or not it's an IL stint or if, a different way to start the game or maybe trust more of his off-speed stuff. I mean, I don't know. I mean, he obviously needs to figure it out. You could tell it's bothering him that he's not pitching well. So, but he's a pro. So, I'm gonna trust in Joe to be able to, figure it out. And I appreciate the phone call, Carlos. And I'm definitely blaming this. I agree with you now. I'm blaming everything on Ben Higgins. It's his fault for leaving town. Padres just completely fell off the map. Here's the thing about, people always want to, and it's not just Carlos. I mean, it's I got people in friend groups that anytime a starting pitcher for the Padres does poorly, and anytime it looks like, we're on the slide, it immediately turns into, well, Trevor Bauer's available. At this point in time, and here's the deal with Trevor Bauer. He didn't have any criminal charges against him, right? He's winning these lawsuits. Say what you want about all that stuff. The reality of the situation is, with all of those things in his past, on top of all of the other baggage that he has had with other teams, throwing the ball over the center field fence before he got pulled from a game, his vlogging, his, content creation, his make it about me, this is all about me, yada, yada, yada. He still has enough stuff where he could pitch in Major League Baseball, but the problem with him is all of his baggage, and I mean all of it, with how that situation with Lindsey Hill went down, with the other women that came out, with all of the other stuff. And whatever, and again with sports, I mean, people in sports, and you could always say that your team is like, always takes the high road. But that's not the case. I mean, eventually, at the end of the day, it is a business, and at the end of the day, these organizations make the decisions based on what's going to win and lose them games. But here's the thing with Trevor Bauer. His talent does not outweigh his baggage. It just doesn't anymore. Because with all the things you have to deal with Bauer, first of all, the first team that's going to sign him is already signing up for a circus anyway, because the media is going to be all over, why did you sign this guy, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so you have to deal with that problem. You have to deal with the fact that he's going to pull out a camera at who knows any time of the day and start filming things and doing his vlogs and doing all of his look at me content. You don't know what type of interviews he's going to do. I mean, think about it he is a PR nightmare from multiple different levels. Again, together. And right now, he's playing down in Mexico. I'm sure he's doing okay. It's probably not spectacular. I mean, to me, in order for him to be something that is worth the baggage for any team, not just the Padres, that guy's got to be just throwing up no-hitter after no-hitter down there. But he's not. He's doing all right in Mexico. He's doing okay. But he's probably a guy, to be honest with you, that would probably have a 4.5 ERA in Major League Baseball. I think that's a fair prediction. He'd probably have like a 4 ERA. It could be even higher. But to me, are you willing to go down the road of dealing with all of this stuff for a player to give you a 4.5 ERA? and a guy that hasn't pitched in Major League Baseball since 2021? The answer is no. He's not worth the headache on multiple fronts. He's not worth the PR nightmare. He's not worth potential issues in the clubhouse. I mean, I know Dodgers players spoke out and said, "Oh yeah," after everything went away, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, I don't mind Trevor." But there wasn't a huge list of people, really standing up like, "Hey, look, man, this guy's great." He had issues everywhere he went. I mean, you want to see a circus on a hill. I mean, Terry Francona goes to pull him in Kansas City, and he throws the ball over the center field freaking fence. I mean, who does that? There's a lot of issues with him. His play does not outweigh his baggage. So I've been kind of like dancing. I don't want to talk. I don't like talking about it. Right? I think there's some grips of reality that people have to come to terms with when it comes to Trevor Bauer. And from this perspective on this side, the reason why he's not playing, and again, as much as you want to think your team is like superior, like just morally better than all the other teams, that's false. They will do whatever it takes to win a World Series. Most of these teams. You can pretend your team is like, we only have great morale here and we only have the greatest people playing for us. That's just to sell for PR. They would do whatever it takes to win a championship. He ain't getting it done. Yeah, and Ruben Abel he wasn't the pitching coach, Boogie. He was there at the time. I think he was part of the organization. I mean, that might be a factor too. Ruben Abel might be like, dude, I don't want to deal with this guy. But I don't know. I mean, we don't know the relationship. Everybody's just kind of keeping away from him because, again, his play does not outperform his baggage. We got time for one more phone call here. Let's weigh in. Here's Steve in San Diego wants to jump in. Steve, what's going on?
Hey, good morning. For being a former, comms guy, I wouldn't want, for PR purposes, I wouldn't want any part of this guy. I wouldn't want any part of this guy just for the PR perspective, let alone for, representing an organization. It'd be like, yeah, well, she's good looking, but she's done a little jail time and she's had a little meth problem, but other than that, she's okay. No, you wouldn't want any part of it, which is probably why most organizations are staying away. But yeah, it's just not worth the results and the effort. Hey, thanks.
No, it's not. And Steve, appreciate the phone call and the weighing in. But that's so like you're gonna hear it. Here's the thing: until that guy, he's never gonna sign with anybody. Which means you're going to have to hear this all the time. And it's not just the Padres. I mean, this happens all the time. Go through, and I know Padres fans love doing this. Look at final score graphics for other teams, and when their pitcher gets blown up, there's at least one or two people in there going, oh, you should sign Trevor Bauer. No, you shouldn't. No, you shouldn't. And I'm not doing it because I'm morally superior than everybody else. I'm not one of those people, all right? Everybody's got their own faults, okay? Everybody has their own glass house, right? And I'm all in on second chances. But the fact of the matter is, his play is not better than the headaches that you have to endure, and it's not worth it to teams. I mean, that's what it comes down to. You could say everything you want about how it's like, well, our team would never have anybody like BS. They have those guys in the league. In every league, all over the place. If they're good, they're playing. If they're not, they're not. If the baggage is more than the talent, teams are out because it's not worth the headache. I'm not dealing with him for a 4.50 ERA that he probably would have in this day and age of Major League Baseball, where he hasn't pitched since 2021. It's 2024. So hopefully that's that. But it won't be because people are going to continue to say it. I mean, I'm sure we'll get, maybe on this program or any, I'm sure we will get comments in the YouTube chat. I'm sure we'll get phone calls in every show after every single bad outing out of a starting pitcher for the Padres. I'm sure the answer will be like, oh, just sign Trevor Bauer. Yeah, okay. Yeah, let me get right on that. If he was playing better than what he was, he'd be somewhere. Same thing with Madison Bumgarner. Guys get paid a lot of money, not do anything. He's a problem too, and he just deteriorated fast. And I don't know if that had to do with all the innings he had to throw in the World Series runs for the Giants. Is it worth it for a guy like that to win those World Series? Who's to say? Didn't really get to talk about the NFL draft too much. The good baseball talk today, though. I love the baseball chatter. Love the interaction from the phone calls. Loved all of you guys in the YouTube page today as well. Got to keep it going, keep it rolling. If you haven't liked us on the show yet, give us a like on the YouTube page. Got 22 likes right now. We got to up that a little bit. Let's up that a little bit. Be nice. Appreciate all of you guys making our day a part of yours on a Sunday morning. Hopefully the Padres can take care of business today against Taijuan Walker. They've been good against Taijuan Walker in the past, and he's making I think it's his first start of the year, if I'm not mistaken, after some injuries that he has had. But you got to be able to put a laugher together and get out of this series with at least one W. Yeah, it'll be Taijuan Walker's first start of the year. They're going against Michael King. I like to see a bounce back out of Michael King. Okay, we've seen a lot of ups and downs with Michael King. Still learning how to pitch as a starter at the major league level. We've seen a lot of great things out of Michael King. Seen some bad out of Michael King. I'm looking for a Michael King bounce back. Padres hitter's done well against Walker in the past. We'll see what we got today. Jerickson Profar hitting .417 lifetime against Taijuan Walker. Makes you think, huh? Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each and every Sunday morning. We'll see you guys next Sunday. This is 97 Through the Fans, San Diego's #1 sports station.